Recorded live from the unfinished loft project of Des's home just outside Brighton in Sussex, welcome to the £200,000 to £100,000 Challenge podcast. This is your no thrills, no BS, and absolutely no get rich quick or passive income promises hub. Hosted by your man, Des Hamilton.
Hello everybody, welcome back to episode 2 of the podcast. What a whirlwind it's been since last week. Really unbelievable stuff. It was my first time doing all this, editing, setting things up, getting ready to publish, looking at new software, finding an RSS feed, whatever that means. It's been an education, but the feedback I've had from you guys, it's blown me away. I say this so many times, I can't be grateful enough for all of you, the support you give me and the interactions you give me as well. So let's push forward, right? You know this isn't going to be a standard podcast about Amazon FBA. I really want to hammer this home. It's designed to be accessible to everyone from all walks of life in the entrepreneur/e-commerce arena. So let's set the stage. It's not just going to be me talking to Amazon sellers, although, come on, it's going to be highly skewed that way as we're getting started because that's mostly my network. And it's certainly not going to be a podcast of me just monologuing about what happens in my life and my journey and the settings that I might put into Google Sheets that month. So yes, we are going to be talking to Amazon sellers a lot, but also to other entrepreneurs of all sorts that use digital marketing and e-commerce in their setup. I'll also do a Q&A from time to time too, so fire things at me and I can always log them for an episode where I'll do a long form Q&A. Let's get into my journey because now we're in month 10. We've crossed the £13,000 mark. We're nearly at £14,000 and I am chuffed to bits. 30% was rough. This month it was tough. We hit it, I think, on the 28th of July. And we'll discuss why shortly, but we did hit the 30%. So it's great news because 30% is my target after all. But I still made over £3,000 this month, which is more than my monthly salary in my day job. So I've been meeting my monthly salary and then some for the last 4 months now, which is great. But why was last month so tricky? I mean, after all, we still had the same traffic, we still had the same response, we still had the same productivity, and I had the same amount of sales. If it was all my money, I would have set a new record, as I had done every month previously. But what happened last month is that I got myself a business partner. So for the first time, I was sharing my profits with someone that wasn't my wife. And it might surprise you to know that I got myself a business partner because it surprised me. When I started this challenge, I didn't know this guy existed. In fact, I'd say I didn't know who he was as far back as early May. Even today, we've not met in person. The closest we got was when he had a day visit to Brighton a few weeks back and I was at home, virtually waving through a window. But it's a lovely example, in fairness, to show that networking has never been easier. And I've got a TikTok either coming out very soon or it might even be out by the time this is published, talking about networking. Through networking, through meeting my business partner, it's opened up doors that's going to take my business to the moon. My business partner's name is Steve Brady. If you're on the Facebook group, you know who he is already. Most importantly, though, he's my guest for today. Steve came into my life through the Facebook group around mid-May, which if you're not part of, by the way, please get involved. There'll be a link in the description of this podcast that will take you there. If you're not in it, you're missing out on a world of information and positivity, which is a really rare thing in social media these days. I'm so proud of it. It was clear when Steve came on and started commenting on people's posts that he had this altruistic nature, that he wanted to help people. In the comments he was giving, he was offering advice in long form, in detail, mentioning that he'd been selling on Amazon full-time for years and he'd been a 30-year career IT consultant. On reading these posts, I knew I liked this guy. I liked what he stood for. And then he DM'd me. He introduced himself, he explained himself, and he made it clear he wasn't out to undermine me. He even asked for my permission to continue giving advice. That says a lot about the thoughtfulness of this guy. So what we started doing is we started chatting online and we set up a call. And again, if you want to network with people properly, for the love of God, jump on a call. Speaking to him, it was clear that our visions and our goals aligned. We had the same values. So Steve and I chatted about how we could collaborate. I made him an admin on the Facebook group pretty quickly. We talked about my mentoring because he also ran a mentoring service. And we had thoughts of how we could expand the library of content together. I've been getting feedback indirectly from people who thought I was too new a seller to offer mentoring. Of course they had a point, but I knew that with Steve, I had someone who instantly boosted my credibility and the credibility of the mentoring program that I offered. What I also like to argue now, though, is that yes, I'm a beginner, but I've been a successful beginner in a cost of living crisis post COVID and Brexit. There's not many people out there that can train you up with those relevant experiences in recent times. Steve and I joined up, and my mentoring program is now our mentoring program. So being a full-time Amazon seller with multiple businesses, fingers in multiple pies, and a 30-year career in IT architecture, Steve has got the chops that I can learn forever from. He's also got flexibility in his time more than I have, given that I've got about half hour per day, including sleep. Come on, I think it's time to go beyond the surface and understand what motivates Steve, what led him to being here as a successful full-timer in e-commerce. So let's bring Steve on, let's pick his brain, let's get into it. Right, so here we are with Steve Brady. Steve, really good to see you, mate. Really good to talk to you again.
Yeah, likewise.
Everyone who's listening to this, they want to find out what it takes to become successful in here, or anyone that's already successful. They want to know what sort of things you're doing. So in case, they might pay homage to you and accidentally rip you off in the nicest way possible. In your own words, talk us through your journey, really. What made you decide, Amazon's for me? I'm going to leave my career. I'm going to start working full-time at this.
Well, I suppose it wasn't a case of Amazon's for me. It was a case of I didn't want to work in my career anymore because I went a circuitous route. I went around the houses, basically. I suppose we're jumping back to 2003, 2004, when I was probably at the peak of my career working for a London company. I was an IT solution architect, and I was the guy who goes in with a consulting company into the boardroom with the MD and the technical director and, oh, what's your problem? Okay, yeah, we need to sort it like this, right? And then we propose a solution, and then we get the team in. And I wear suits and I scribble fancy drawings on the whiteboard and I live out of hotels. I was in New York for Reuters 2003 with a colleague of mine, Alan, same age. And what were we? We were late 30s, actually. We got word that the consultancy that we were working for was going to be taken over. Cut long story short, we had the opportunity to take redundancy and we took it. And I left to form consultancy, ended up two former colleagues, and we created a new consultancy. But a year or so later, I saw Alan's LinkedIn, and it was a laptop on a deck chair or a sunbed. And he'd moved to Lanzarote, and he was offering his services as a software developer. And I've always said to my boys, I want to be like Alan. I don't want to live in hotels and finding that there's absolutely nothing at the airport to bring home for 5, 6, 7-year-old boys. And I don't want to come home at 11 o'clock at night when they're fast asleep. And I then started looking at ways to work off my laptop, because I've always been in IT, I've always been in technical training, and I know you can do it on the internet. And of course, with 4G and 5G over the last several years, it's made it easier. And I was typically on 2-year projects, and I had a couple of projects, and it was boring. I was looking around for ways to get out of the life, and I got into matched betting at the time. I did try affiliate marketing. I set up a website to review toys and then link the toys into the Amazon pages and get some money. That was okay, but obviously there's lots of others like that around. We were probably talking about 2014, 2015 when I was serious about it.
Okay.
I set up a website with a local friend who was down the pub, and he was a sports journalist, and he was into those tipsters. And we tracked some of his tips for a few months, and he was making money. So we set up a website and like a subscription system, and offered tips out. Yeah, we made some money, but it wasn't going to be massively scalable there. So I was looking for something long term, and I was putting money aside. I mean, I was an independent consultant earning good money every day. 2017, I secured my last contract, or last to be contract, with IKEA. And it meant me spending 6 months commuting out of Gatwick and then a year living in Denmark, which was actually quite nice, but the project was very stressful. And then after a year, I came back and I was doing support for 6 months. And in that time, I was just looking around. So what I did, I put some money behind me and I rented a warehouse in Swindon. And this was 2019 when I actually kicked it off. And I bought loads of returns from Amazon and Argos and Sainsbury's. So you can go onto wholesale or clearance sites, buy these pallets. They give you a list of what's in there, but you don't really know what rubbish is in there. I got known to be the digital radio and the Hoover man. For 2019, I spent a lot of time checking products, mainly DAB radios. I had to check a PlayStation 5 with virtual reality headset. Well, that was taxing. And the problem with that is I tried to get too clever, and I listed it on eBay and I listed it on Amazon using some software which would coordinate my inventory so that I wouldn't sell it twice. Yep, I sold it twice. So I had to, unfortunately, I had to cancel the Amazon one, which is a big black mark against you.
Yeah.
And my health rating was bad for a year after that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was one account that I had dormant for ages. And I've actually got 3 seller accounts through 3 limited companies now, partly because I had dormant companies through my consultancy days, but partly because of that fright of a big black mark on your account. Couldn't get my money out. Didn't have much in it, but I didn't have access to it for a while.
Right.
So that shook me, and I didn't want all my eggs in the Amazon basket. So,
no, absolutely.
Yeah. So then I decided not to go into contracting anymore. And this was 2019, July. And I spent 6 months effectively living out of a warehouse down in Swindon with a little dog, and putting all I could into eBay sales for secondhand stuff. But these were items where either customers had changed their minds and they were perfect, but the box was opened, or I just needed to replace a part. And then in February 2020, I bought a pallet of steam cleaners, not knowing around the corner, March 2020, was COVID.
Yeah.
They sold out within the first week of lockdown.
Everyone wanted the clean carpet in lockdown.
And it included those that did the curtains and everything like that, you know.
Well, what surprises me on hearing this story is the same things have happened to you that I've heard when I've done my research into other sellers as well. And it kind of doesn't really matter how old you are, what experience you've got. It all comes down to the level of hustle that you put in, especially in the early stages. So the fact that you've gone from match betting to tipster to affiliate marketing and then almost a backdoor route into Amazon through using the returns pallets.
Yes, it's backdoor. I think you're right on that one. Because I did FBM initially because I had the space in the warehouse and I had lots of racks.
Right. So I suppose the question is how were you so sure that this was the way to go, having had a very safe and secure, big paid money job behind you, even though it wasn't satisfying you? What made you sure that this was the way to go?
Mental health, I think, to be honest. I was treated for depression 2005 because when Alan and I got made redundant and I set up that other company, I was working as a consultant contractor during the day, driving home and then having, it was Skype calls with my 2 business directors then. One was the sales guy, one was the project manager, and I was a technical guy. So I was doing a lot of the work, but then trying to build a business. And this was a time when my boys were 3 and 5, and I missed bath times and I missed picking them up from school and things like that. And it led to depression. A friend of mine who was an accountant, company accountant, he probably saved my sanity because he said, best thing you can do, mate, is go bankrupt. You get all these debts away. Because I was paying £3,000 a month on maintenance since 2007.
Yeah.
As a contractor, you might earn £1,000 a day sometimes, you might earn £400 a day, but it's not every day. And you don't pay yourself for holidays or anything like that.
That's right. That's right. It's one of the myths of contracting that everyone's loaded, isn't it?
Yeah, and the trouble is, I was earning £1,000 a day into the company. In summary, I went bankrupt. Best thing I ever did because it allowed me to reset. Took some pressure off me. I had more time with the boys actually. But since then, I've been able to provide more for the boys through university and beyond. So it was the best thing I ever did.
Absolutely.
I was almost too successful. By 40, I was on 100 grand in London and not realizing the toll it took on me mentally and with my relationship. I have never been as happy as I am now, even though I work 7 days a week, but I don't work 8 hours a day.
No,
I work a couple of hours on Sunday, doing some admin. I might take Wednesday off, for example, or I might spend a bit of time doing a podcast with some random bloke.
That's the real cause of happiness. I mean, you met me a couple of months ago, there's no coincidence there, Steve.
Oh, was it? Okay.
But honestly, it's proper inspiring stuff. We talk about perseverance, resilience, determination, whatever you want to call it, and acting in the face of failure. But I think it's real life stories like this that really put things into perspective. And when you look back and you can say, yes, I did that, and look what I achieved, that's incredible. It's something that people like me and anyone listening to this, that's where I want to be. When my kids are at university, I can say, yeah, I made a decision when they were 0, 3, 7,
Yeah.
and 10.
What I don't want is people to go through the heartache I've had. I don't want people to have to go through bankruptcy and divorce and to spend lots of money. I mean, one thing I set up just before COVID, and luckily I could manage it from my house, was Brady's Botanicals, which was a private label range of hand creams and lip salves, all vegan and things like that. But the costs of even trademarks and things like that were horrendous. And you didn't really have a lot of help about pay-per-click. You know, I probably spent about 10 grand on product and boxes, custom boxes, designers and everything. The products were all sourced in the UK. I didn't want to risk going into China. And it was COVID. So, you know, I bought thousands and thousands of bars of these vegan, good to the planet, save the orangutan type bars and everything.
Yeah.
And my garage smelt lovely. But and I folded all the boxes myself and I sent them into Amazon FBA. But then how do you find it? How do you find something in the beauty area which has just come onto the market? You don't. No. It's pay-per-click, and that's where all the money goes. That's what people don't really tell you. There are so many different variations of something with companies that got bigger budgets that you have to get to a point where you realize I can't spend any more money on advertising because I probably won't make the sales to recoup anything. And I ended up probably breaking even, making $1,000 or so, something like that, over the course of, well, this was mid 2020, I really started. I finished it a couple of years ago. I got rid of my last stock out of Amazon. So over 2 years, I might have made £1,000 with a lot of hassle. It's just not viable. And to do that successfully, you've got to start with a lot more money than most people I know have. So it's not, private label for me these days is not a viable route to long-term income.
So if we fast forward to now, what are your current Amazon models of selling that you're implementing?
Well, I did start doing some retail arbitrage because I had down in Swindon had some big Argos places like that. Toys R Us was down there at the time. I suppose the answer to the question is driven by what I tried to do, because I was single at the time and I bought a motorhome, and an old one, and in 2019, and I was planning to send all my stuff into Amazon, do FBA, and go around Europe.
Nice. Live the van life.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And COVID hit, the engine blew up on the van. That cost me 10 grand. And I just took it as a sign to say this wasn't meant to be, at least not for a while. But the idea was still to be like Alan, to work off your laptop. In the motorhome, I could do that. I did it in the UK for several weekends. I needed to outsource all the key operations. And anybody who's just started this journey will know that sourcing the products is really 99% of the effort.
Yeah.
But as you outsource that, as you grow, you realize that for every product that you buy, there's a little bit of admin. You know, whether it's purchasing, whether it's prepping, it's inventory tracking, pricing, everything. You scale that up to hundreds of items a month, even thousands. And you have to develop other processes and best practices to keep on top of everything.
Yeah.
And by this time, I had 3 virtual assistants. I set up a deal service because they were actually finding more deals than I could sell. I still run that deal service, but I don't advertise it because I'm revamping it. So I'm going to make it more efficient. And then at one point, I had 6 virtual assistants. I mean, we're talking £400-500 each.
Yeah.
So I had high costs. So I had to let 3 of them go and kept my original 3. And I'll talk about those later, but they're still with me and they manage my business. They do the purchasing, sourcing, purchasing and admin of the accounts. Leaving me to do things like training, which I love, helping other people in a Facebook group, running my prep center, and developing software. and walking the dog and having a better life balance.
Yeah, amazing. So it's fair to say it's not just Amazon anymore, is it? It's
No.
fingers in other pies. And I think this is one of the things that I'm going to need to hammer home on the point of this podcast, is that it seems that the very, very successful sellers, they don't settle with Amazon. They find other income streams away from Amazon and almost diversify their income streams.
But it's too risky because Amazon are so arrogant that they can control the rules all the time. The policies keep changing. The hassle of gating and ungating and contacting seller support, it's a lottery. You send the same things in for ungating on the category. You can send it 10 times. You don't know whether the people who put their name on the emails are automated. I mean, my 30-year career was actually in call centers. It wasn't just IT. It was specialized in what became contact centers.
Yeah.
And the biggest cost in any contact center is humans. And that's why it's increasingly hard to find a phone number for big companies, because they don't want lots of people on the phone.
No,
They want you to do self-help, go to the FAQs. Have you tried our knowledge bases, our forums? Oh, let's go to chat. Then you're in the queue. You're number 240 in the queue. And it's only very specialized instances, like I'm with Standard Life and I'm over 55, so I have direct access to a team that can advise me on my pension. So it's things like that where it's personalized support that you need. Whereas if it's more general information, they don't want you to speak to people because they can't afford too many people on the end of a phone. And the more people that ring in, the more frustrated they get and customer satisfaction goes down. So it's actually goes against them to have lots of people queuing on the calls.
This is it. And one of the consequences of that, and I talk about this a lot, one of the consequences of that is that the opportunities for human interaction, they're dwindling.
They are.
And then almost absolutely. And then you get entrepreneurs who understand that, and then they put emphasis on human interaction, and those are the ones that seem to be able to forge better relationships, better networks, and then pick the fruit that comes off of the back of that as well.
Absolutely. And a lot of my contracts actually in my career were through people I'd worked with, people I'd networked with. Yeah, my CV got me flagged up for certain keywords on databases. But more and more, it was, I had one keyword in my CV for a job I did 10 years ago. Oh, Steve, our system says that you are perfect and very experienced in this area. No, I'm not.
Huh.
Not, but the people who got me the jobs were the people who talked to me and got to know me.
It's the old phrase, isn't it, really? It's not what you know, it's who you know.
It is who you know, absolutely. And it's the same with this industry as well.
Yeah.
Because if you try and start up with Amazon FBA on your own, then great. You've got a lot of knowledge on YouTube and some Facebook groups, but without access to people who've done it and can advise you and are prepared to advise you on what not to do, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to lose a lot of money and you're going to be disillusioned.
This is it. And I think this is important because, as you know, I started with my £200. I didn't take a course. I self-taught. That's not to say that I didn't invest in myself in terms of knowledge gained. What I did was I went out and reached out to people that I knew could teach me, not for free necessarily, but just through leveraging relationships. I think if you haven't got any money and you go into it, you need to do that. If you have got money, I think it's such a wise investment to invest in mentoring, education, courses. You've just got to do your due diligence and pick a good one. I think there's such merit in that. There's no shame. Every single job anyone's ever had in the world, they've had someone to train them. And yes, you can learn it for free, like I did. But I went out on my way to network with people like you, like Luke. And I speak about all of these people because they basically built my knowledge up without me having to pay for a course. And I think the power of networking enables you to do that. And this is one of the things where you and I are so aligned because we've got the Facebook group now that we're the admins of. And it's so rewarding knowing that we can give back to these people so they know what they're doing without making too drastic a mistake. Or at the same point, we can all learn and grow together because I'm still at a very early stage myself.
Well, I was just going to say that it's not all about a one-way giving. I am still learning because Amazon keep changing the rules. People ask questions in the Facebook group where I actually haven't come across that situation. So either I have to try and recreate it, which is almost like breaking a process to try and recreate it, or just tell them, well, seller support, unfortunately. And that's the last thing you want to do, is contact seller support, because you lose the will to live after the first few automated emails. But everybody is always learning, and even if the ground rules and the requirements don't change from Amazon, as your business grows, your systems need to change. You need to go from paper recording of receipts and everything to digitizing things. As you outsource, you need to have a system in place to check the quality of the outsourced service, whether that's prep or VA or purchasing or anything. So you are always going to have to adapt to the industry changing, the product changing. Brands keep gating and ungating. Amazon keep taking things out of their catalog. We had one yesterday where can't find it anymore. So what do we do with the stock? And
the revenue calculator changed last week, I think.
That's absolutely, and that's why a lot of Amazon sellers also either have or need to have a backup of an eBay store to get rid of stuff that you can't sell on Amazon, or it's just been tanked by newbies who use pricing software or just do penny under. And it's not worth you leaving the stuff in Amazon because of the storage charges. Just get it out and sell it on eBay.
All right, that's as good a place as any to take an intermission for about a week. I'm hoping you find that as interesting as I did talking to Steve. Listening to stories like this, I think it's going to be something that I don't ever get enough of. Just as well, really. It'll be a really terrible podcast otherwise. Before you go, let's see if I can start a feature. Let's call it Tip of the Week. Let's go. Tip of the Week. Amazon to Amazon flips. Can you do them? Yes. Will you make money from them? Absolutely. Do Amazon like it? No. Do I do it? No. Listen, you do you. And if you're happy with it and you're making money from it, more power to you. I don't do them and I don't advocate for them. Amazon don't like it. One slip and you're risking your account. And why would you want to risk your account? We need to treat your account as preciously as we treat a newborn baby or a double yolker egg. That's my tip of the week. Tip of the week. Join us next week for part 2 of the Steve Brady chat, where we'll delve deeper into the importance of continuous learning and improvement. We'll talk about the benefits of automation with Google Sheets and how we put massive emphasis on it in our mentoring program. We'll talk about scaling up and maximizing the use of his virtual assistants, what Steve is doing to give back, and the things that he does differently to stay successful. If you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review where you can. If you want to know more about me, head to the link tree in the description and have a browse. If you're interested in the mentor program that Steve and I run for brand new sellers, all of the info is in there too. And there's an option to book a call with me directly for free where I can answer any questions you might have. That'll do it. Roll the music. Let's have the lovely voiceover girl in. See you next week.
Be sure to join us next time for another dose of inspiration and insights into e-commerce and entrepreneurship. And who knows, by then Des may well have finished that love project. And always remember, it's time to say goodbye poor, hello rich.